Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. I'm Aaron Veloce, but you can always just call me Seth. And today I just kind of want to finally review and talk about the Fanatec DD2, which kind of also applies to the DD1, since personally I don't use the full 25 newton meters of the DD2, and I would be just fine with the power out of the DD1. So I kind of want to go over my experience with it and if I still feel like it's worth it at this point in 2023 when there's definitely a lot of competition on the market. Put my gloves on. I figured I'd do some driving while we chit chat. I did debate going SimiCube 2 Pro at the time since it's basically the same amount of money, but I previously had a Fanatec CSW 2.5 years before that I was really happy with. So I figured, well, I already know the Fanatec gear. I already know I like it. You have all the features and compatibility. And with the SimiCube 2 Pro, I didn't really like any of the wheel options at the time. It's definitely grown a lot more now. And I also figured I was probably going to end up spending a lot more money going the SimiCube route instead of just doing an all Fanatec setup. Now, one of the reasons I was debating on going the SimiCube route that time is if you'd read a lot of reviews and forum posts or Reddit posts, people would mention that the motor didn't feel that smooth. So that made me really debate my decision, but ultimately I figured I'd still go with the Fanatec setup. When I ended up getting it, I definitely noticed what people were talking about with. But the thing is, over that 2 years, Fanatec has done so many updates and completely rewritten the software where the quality and the smoothness of the force feedback is so much better. And honestly, it is really, really good. So we'll go over what I think the strengths of the Fanatec DD1 and DD2 are. I would say the biggest strength is definitely ease of the ecosystem and compatibility. If you're a console racer, and you want a quality setup, I don't think there's really a better option. Yeah, you can do weird things like drive hub, but there's nothing quite like just, plug and play, ease of use. And that is definitely a big selling point. If you have the PlayStation compatible DD1 version and an Xbox compatible wheel, that means you get full compatibility on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox with one wheelbase. And then being that you're in the ecosystem, you are locked to basically using all Fanatec products when playing on console. Not so much on PC, but it is still kind of nice having all Fanatec gear even on PC because everything plugs into the back of the wheelbase, all your peripherals, your handbrake, shifter, pedals, which means you only have one cable going to your PC. And with my setup over there now, I have like 15 USBs going to my computer all from my sim setup. Obviously, there's a lot more going on with it. I honestly miss just how simple life was when I just ran this Fanatec setup. I find it's a lot easier to dial in your own force feedback settings, and it's a little bit more consistent across multiple different sims. It's typically easier to even set up the sims. A lot of sims just automatically recognize you have Fanatec gear and even have button layouts already bound for you. You have compatibility with all sims and even more arcade racers, so if you like messing around on Forza and stuff like that from time to time, you have that native compatibility where I've tried to set it up with my SimiCube and Husingvelt pedals, and you gotta use Joy-to-Key and an emulator, and it's just a huge pain in the butt. Where with this, you still might run into some issues every now and then, but overall, most stuff just kind of works and it saves you a lot of hassle. Now, like I said, they've really improved the software quite a bit, which improved the force feedback and feel. And then you also have Fanalabs. The improvements to Fanalabs, I think, are one of the biggest selling points for this wheelbase, especially, once again, for that ease of use. If you don't even want to think about your force feedback profiles for most of the main sims, there's the profiles that the Fanatec beta tester Maurice has made for every specific car and like iRacing and ACC and some other sims as well. And not only are there all those profiles, but now with the updates to Fanalabs, you can have them auto load that once you get in the car, it loads a profile, you don't have to touch anything. And you set those auto loading profiles and have your profile set for every sim. You can literally just turn on the sim, start driving, and not think about anything else. A lot of times on my main sim, I have 5 different pieces of software. I gotta change my semi-cube profile for the sim that I'm in. And if I'm using different profiles for different cars, and let's say iRacing, every time I switch cars, I gotta switch the profile. And yeah, it's a real first world problem, but it's just so nice to not have to deal with all that hassle and just load up and drive, which means you're more likely to actually do that, just load up and drive. If you're curious on how to set up those profiles, I do have some video guides for setting those force feedback profiles on my channel. Now, unfortunately, if you're a console player, you don't have the benefit of utilizing those auto-loading profiles, but you still have 5 different profiles you can easily switch to with the tuning menu in the wheel, which, like I said earlier, I find if I'm making my own custom force feedback or if I want to change things on the fly, it's just so easy with the Fanatec setup and just, hitting the tuning menu button, doing a couple changes. I've been in, long endurance races where I didn't really want to have as much torque anymore during the race. My arms were getting tired and I could just, adjust it on the fly, which is another feature I greatly miss. All right, track change. At Kailami now. And yeah, like I said earlier as well, I find it's a lot easier for me. I've definitely spent more time making my own custom force feedback settings on the Fanatec setup versus my SimiCube setup. SimiCube does have where you can download other people's profiles, which that's actually really nice, and I do kind of wish Fanatec had that option. But I do think it is a lot easier just to, quickly come up with some settings that feel pretty good once you have a basic understanding of what everything does. You can do more on the SimiCube settings, but it can also be a little bit daunting if you don't know what you're changing. So let's see, we went over compatibility, ease of use. All right, so let's talk about the force feedback. All right, so the force feedback, after all those updates and changes, it honestly feels great. I don't have any complaints with the detail that I'm feeling from the car. I feel the road very well, the curbs, the car under oversteering. And when I switched to SimiCube, I wasn't as impressed as I thought I would be. Do I think the SimiCube is a little bit better? Yeah, I think so. But does that mean this is no good? And no, this is still a fantastic driving experience. Like right now, if I swing the wheel back and forth on the straight here, it's really smooth. The only times I ever feel any bit of notchiness in the wheel is like, let's see here, if I do like really quick, snappy movements, you could just feel it's not even like super notchy. It's just you feel some, let's say, texture, and even then, it's kind of hard to get that. Even then, I'm struggling to feel it. It's pretty smooth. I will say, if you are gonna feel something, if you're using like the smaller formula rim, you definitely will notice it more in a smaller and lighter rim like that. When you're using a bigger and heavier rim like this, it adds a little bit of dampening to it and will make it feel a little bit smoother. Let's see. Yeah, it's so slight. When you're focusing on racing, it's not gonna bug you. You're never gonna notice it. ACC is one of the sims that has really nice smooth force feedback on this wheelbase. Depending on the game or the sim and how much interpolation you're running, you can definitely perhaps still feel some notchiness. But really, I wouldn't even worry about it. Like, it feels great, loads up nicely on the corners. Overall, I'm really happy with the driving experience. It's, giving me all the information that I need. Another great thing about those force feedback Fanalab profiles that Maurice created are that you get every car's matching RPM LEDs on the wheel if you're using a wheel that has RPM lights on it, which is super nice. Just another thing that adds to the experience without all the hassle of having to create custom profiles in something like SimHub with aftermarket wheels, or trying to find somebody that's done it for you. There is things like the YoUp LED profiles, but there's so many different aftermarket wheel RPM configurations, and depending on your setup getting those matching LEDs can be a real pain. So not having to worry about that with this, or you just, the games have the native RPM LEDs, just a generic yellow, red, blue, and that pretty much works by default with Fanatec gear. Now let's talk about the things that I don't like. And honestly, it's pretty much just the quick release. The quick release is so bad. We've been waiting on the QR2 for I don't know how many years now. When I bought it 2 years ago, there was people, saying, oh, should I buy a DD1 or a DD2 now or wait till the QR2 comes out? It's been 2 years and it's still not out. I always run this little bolt here to add extra rigidity with some of my wheels, and hard cornering, you can actually feel it's got like a keyway, and you can feel the quick release kind of slightly smacking and rotating just like a tiny amount, where you can feel that metal clacking about inside the quick release, and it's not good. And it seems like the tolerances for the quick release, some people have no issues at all, and some people have tons of issues with just flex and things like that. Do I think the flex is actually a problem while driving? It's not a problem. Other than that, like if you have that situation where you feel that clacking, that's bad. But just like the actual flex in the wheel here, you can see I have some left to right wobble, even with that extra tightening bolt in. And yeah, is it a problem while driving? No. Is it a pain in the butt to switch out wheels? Yeah, it's really annoying. Grab an Allen key to take that bolt out. You can run it without the bolt, but I need it to avoid that slight clacking. And even without the bolt, having to undo this collar, and there's that rubber grommet that collar squeezes to tighten it up, which makes pulling the wheel on and off rather difficult, where sometimes I've smacked the wheel in my head. The whole situation is bad. It really diminishes everything that's great about the Fanatec setup, and that's really unfortunate. Now, if QR2 ever comes out and it fixes all these issues, then I think it's a fantastic wheelbase. I like the Fanatec ecosystem wheels, and really, yeah, that's my biggest downside. Now, a good thing about the quick release is that it has all the electronics built inside, so you don't have to have any wires or use a wireless protocol like Bluetooth to get the signal from your steering wheel to your computer. That was another big selling point for me when I was deciding between SimiCube and this Fanatec DD2, is that I really didn't want to have to deal with wires from my steering wheel to my computer, and I also didn't want to deal with any wireless signals or batteries in my steering wheel, risking something dying during a race or interference with the connection. Now, after having both setups, I would say as long as you route the wire properly, having a wire in your steering wheel, not a big deal at all. And I've only used a SimiCube wireless wheel, a Sim Racing Bay Lamborghini Huracan wheel, and I've had no issues with that wheel either with the signal or anything like that. So I think my fears at the time are now unwarranted. It's no longer an issue, and I wouldn't let that stop you from making whatever decision you want to make. But it is still really nice to have it all integrated into the wheelbase and not have to deal with that. It's definitely my preferred way of having, a sim racing wheel. Now, another downside with the Fanatec ecosystem is if you want to run aftermarket wheels, that means you have to buy a $200 Podium hub, versus my SimiCube. I could just buy a $60 quick release and save $140 there. That's a big pain point for a lot of people. And then also there's no compatibility with the Podium hub to connect your steering wheel to it. Even though it has a USB-C port, from my understanding, it's not a true USB-C data port. It's much more proprietary. You lose the benefit of having no wires with a Fanatec wheel, and you have to run wires anyways with an aftermarket wheel. In my opinion, if you're gonna run a lot of aftermarket wheels and start to lose the benefit of the Fanatec ecosystem, then I would probably start looking elsewhere. So, all right, so who would I recommend a Fanatec DD1 or DD2 to? Well, number one is gonna be console players, or people that play on both PC and console. I think that one's a bit of a no-brainer. But if you're only on PC and you're not worried about console, then I would still recommend it if you just want simplicity. If you're not really wanting to tinker with a whole bunch of different settings and things, and you just want to load up games and they pretty much just work, and you want a really clean setup, you know, one USB cable straight to your PC, no 15 USB cables. You just want simple, stupid works. And if you like the full Fanatec product range, like you like their steering wheels, then I think it's, you know, it's totally fine. The quick release isn't really that big of an issue if you're only going to be using one steering wheel, because you're never really going to change it. You'll put the locking pin in, and, you know, is it the most rigid quick release in the world? No, but real cars have flex in their steering columns and wheels, and when you're driving, you never really notice it. Unless you're trying to look for it, unless you're trying to make it happen. If you are more of a tinkerer, or you like to do a lot of DIY stuff, or a lot of, you know, aftermarket stuff, then I think you can get a better experience elsewhere. Just a little bit better force feedback quality, and just a lot more freedom to create wilder setups with your rig. More customization, and like I said, you can still run different, you know, gear. You don't have to totally be tied down in the Fanatec ecosystem. It's just a little bit easier to do it elsewhere, and then you start to lose all the greatest benefits out of the Fanatec ecosystem. And if you're gonna lose those benefits, I just think you can gain other benefits instead from different competitors. Would I buy this DD2 again today? Me personally, no, because I am willing to suffer a little bit and do a whole bunch of wild, crazy stuff on my main rig. But I will say, I honestly, genuinely miss just how simple and easy life was when I was just running this setup. So I think for the right person, still fantastic, still justifiable. When you get really into the weeds like me, then it makes sense to, you know, do something else. So one thing I also want to talk about is any issues I've had with the wheelbase and or support, because I don't know that I see it as much anymore, but I remember a lot of people would have a bunch of issues with warranty claims or just getting support from Fanatec, and honestly, they've always been pretty good to me, you know, quick to respond, helpful, and, you know, fixed my problems quickly. The only issue I've had with my wheelbase is actually from the power supply. It would just make a really high-pitched whining noise, and they replaced it for me, no problem. It was quick and painless. I've had to contact them for warranty work with other Fanatec stuff, and they've always been just fine with me. So personally, at least in the US, with the US Fanatec team, I've had a great customer support experience. And other than just that annoying noise from the power supply, I've had no actual functional issues with my wheelbase. Trying to think anything else I would like to mention about the wheelbase. Aesthetically and I guess build wise, it is kind of big and chunky. I guess it doesn't really matter all that much, but it is nice having a smaller wheelbase, especially if you have your screens behind the wheelbase. If you're running like big screens like I am on my main rig. It has that OLED screen. Mine has very slight burn-in. You can't see it using any of the digital information while driving. You only see it when you turn on the wheelbase. It has that fully white screen telling you to activate high torque mode. But honestly, other than like the tuning menu, I don't use that screen. I don't think that screen is really like, it's, you know, nice and functional for like changing the settings, but you also have the screens on the wheels for that, and you can get some like other cool information out of it, like, you know, lap times, track information, or car information. It's like right now I can't even see it because my wheel's covering it. You have to run your wheel at kind of a strange angle to even see it. It's not a selling point in my opinion at all. Like, it's cool that it's there. It's somewhat helpful in some scenarios. There is a fan in the back of the DD2 and DD1. If you leave your wheelbase on and you're in a very silent room, then perhaps you can hear it a tiny bit. You'll never hear this thing while driving with headphones on. It is pretty quiet. And in fact, the actual motors and the wheelbase itself is dead silent. And Fanatec's magnetic shifters are really silent. So that may be another selling point for some people. Like, if you're in a place where you need your rig to be quiet, the Fanatec gear is very quiet. But let's see, rapid fire, any other information before we end this? I don't get on the Fanatec hate bandwagon that I see a lot of people do. I still think it's, you know, it's a great option. I would still like to see improvements and more innovation from Fanatec. They've really been sleeping lately while everybody is pumping out some really cool stuff. Fanatec's just, I don't know. I'm sure they're working on stuff, but it's taking way too long. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope that gives you a good idea and understanding of what this has to offer, and helps you figure out what the right decision for you is. Like, the quick and dirty is if you're like extremely hardcore to the max, then you might want something else. If you're more casual and don't want to be fiddling with stuff all the time, then it's a great option. And I also don't want to make it seem like this doesn't deliver a high quality, you know, experience for the hardcore people. It definitely still does. You know, when it comes to the driving experience, it's still excellent. But yeah, I'm gonna call it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, greatly appreciate a thumbs up. We love those. It really helps out the channel. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, you know, down below. This video is a little bit more rambly, I think, so I might have, you know, left some details out. And if you'd like to see some more, you know, reviews, sim racing content, anything, you know, cars and racing related, then definitely subscribe to the channel. But until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.